voting for this assembly, saying it's actually less than 3.
It is. And people are going to start rioting in the streets.
Was reported to have asked Putin for military support that would help him stay in power.
We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
And they ignore him. And 8 more years goes by till Bernie himself finally admits to his sons, hey, I've been running a Ponzi scheme.
Does its dominance mean it can use the alliance for its own ends?
Since 1981, bond yields, also known as coupon rates, have just gone down and down and down.
The Federal Reserve note will be your biggest financial liability.
RTD Live Talk, Wednesday afternoon. It's 12:30-ish on the 19th day of September, and I'm excited to come to you with a great special guest that's going to give us some information on options. And so the whole idea of rethinking the dollar is being able to discover and uncover ways of diversifying and protecting yourself for the days ahead, because everyone believes and knows that we're living in uncertain times, and so you have to be prepared and have options. So with that being the case, I'm going to give it a second before we go to our guest, Mr. Will Lehr from Perpetual Assets. And so if you are chiming in, first-time viewers, feel free to let us know where you're watching us from in the chat. And as well as we get into the meat and potatoes of this conversation, there's a number above my head, 1-833-LIVE-RTD, where you can call in and ask any questions you have in reference to the crypto sector, gold, economy, or anything of that nature. So with that being the case, let's see who's checking in with us. And so I'm trying to get everything set up last minute. Got all this stuff to maneuver around with, but we should be good to go. And so anybody there, let me see here. Okay, so we'll get started. And so I have my guest here, Mr. Will Lehr from Perpetual Assets, joining us. So Will, welcome to RTD Live Talk this Wednesday afternoon. How's everything going in your area?
Great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And so when we first talked in reference to some of the things that you and your company have put together to provide options, I knew it was something well worth discussing, because people always inquire, Mike, what should we do? What should we do? And so most people just think about just buying precious metals directly and keeping it, in their possession. But then there's other ways of being able to extract some of the wealth that they've contributed to the system and put it into their own hands. And so we're going to get into that. And so we got, just to give a couple acknowledgments as to who's joining us, we got Prof, James, Andy. How you guys doing, man? Hopefully you guys got some questions for us. We got some people from San Antonio. We got someone close to me in Livonia, Michigan, Will. So hopefully they can call in and share what's on their mind. But before we get any deeper into this chat and where it's going to take us, let's talk a little bit about Will. And so for those who are not familiar with perpetualassets.com, you guys have a YouTube channel. You guys are heavy in the alternative media space. How did you come across this alternative message and thinking outside the box and things of that nature? How did you arrive to this point?
Well, it all started for me in 2010. I was sent an image of Building 7, of all things, and it was enough for me to scratch my head and go, wait a minute, something doesn't add up right there. And the rest is history. I went down. At the time, I was a financial planner. I was working in advising people on their finances and insurance. And I had always been one who, an individualist, didn't believe in following the herd, didn't believe in following the pack, always sort of marched to the beat of my own drum. And when I learned about the finance and economics has always been a part of my study and my understanding. When I learned about the powers that be and the Federal Reserve and the monetary control system, went down that rabbit hole, like many of us do. I didn't, this was back in 2010. I didn't shave. I didn't shower for, didn't leave my computer, didn't leave the house for days, weeks, months. it's a bit of a, depending on how people come into the light, so to speak. For me, it was quite shocking that everything I'd been told was not entirely true. And so I had to sort of relearn politics and economics and the financial system and how it's all pieced together. That immediately led me into precious metals as, just an understanding of monetary history and the financial system and the debt-based fiat system. And, our dollar used to be backed with metals for a reason. So understanding all that and the monetary element behind the metals and a return to some sort of a gold standard or metal standard, real money that you can't print, that's not, under the control of bankers or issued, I guess, by the bankers. And so that led me into metals. I got pretty deep into the precious metals industry, worked as a dealer, worked for a mint as well on the minting side. One thing led to another, and I learned about a type of self-directed IRA, and I learned about this exemption in the tax code regarding U.S. Silver Eagles, and learned about how you could take your IRA or your old 401k and put it in this type of instrument and actually take gold or silver or platinum Eagles and store them yourself that were owned by your IRA. And at the time, we had people and clients and friends that were, going through this same sort of realization, awakening process, and were cashing out their IRAs and old 401ks. I've got this chunk of money over at Fidelity or Merrill Lynch or wherever. And, if people view the system as terminal and this whole thing is about to fall apart, I'm going to lose my retirement account.
Now, let me ask you questions. What time frame was this? Was this shortly after after all that QE, the Great Recession type of side effects where people were panicking, so they were cashing out?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was all in the midst of that, in the midst of QE. This was like 2010 to 2012, So, people were, it didn't take a rocket scientist to look at the money supply, to look at the national debt, to hear this talk about quantitative easing 1, 2, and on down the line. These people, these were friends and clients that in the metals sector who cashed out their IRA, lost half of it to taxes and penalties, and then took the remaining half or whatever and plowed it into precious metals that they could hold themselves. So we learned about this and went, wait a minute, there's some real value in letting people know about this IRA product because it allows you to roll over your IRA from Merrill Lynch or wherever over to this platform and have all the control and custody and manage the investments yourself, but keep it underneath the IRA umbrella so that there's not a taxable event. You're not distributing the whole thing. So we started, my partner Gus and I started the company with that in mind, and started spreading the message. And we've been active in the alternative media with guys like yourself and have made a lot of friends in that space. We feel it's the real news space. And it's kind of amazing how much it's grown, to see it grow in the last 7 or 8 years, and how much. And the participation from people, it's really a breath of fresh air. But our entire goal with this was to educate people on this concept, to help people. And over the years, when you have somebody who wakes up, awakens, whatever, realizes, holy cow, I'm going to lose all this money that I've saved and been working for all these years, whether it's to a bank bail-in or whether it's the next 2008, my 401k goes to a 101k or whatever, this is a way for me to get it out without the taxes and penalties, put it in something I trust and believe in, and actually remove it from the banking system. It's not in a fund. It's not in a depository somewhere. It's under my pillow. So that's really what we've been doing. Cryptos, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, 900 years ago, 1000 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, 4000 years ago, 5000 years ago, 6000 years ago, 7000 years ago, 8000 years ago, 9000 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, 700 years ago, 800 years ago, 900 years ago, 1000 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, 4000 years ago, 5000 years a this platform, this type of IRA, it was authored by a congressional attorney, authored into law some 30 years ago, and it's been used for private equity, for real estate. It's not just for precious metals. You can use this platform for anything. You can buy silver, and let's say it shoots up quite a bit. You can sell half of it or a chunk of it or whatever and keep it all inside the IRA, but you're managing the investments. You can sell some, take some profits, buy some gold, buy some cryptos, buy some land.
Yeah.
So cryptos came along, and we were like, holy cow, this platform is the best for investing in cryptos, because you have that same level of control and custody. You can invest in any Bitcoin, Ethereum, any of the altcoins that you want. And most importantly, you can store the private keys yourself. You know, with crypto, it's all about access. Less than, with precious metals, we were always, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. If you don't hold it, you don't own it. That old mantra, right? And now cryptos have come into and it's a whole nother way of thinking about wealth. And with crypto, it's an access. You can just memorize a recovery seed, and there's no physical holding of any crypto. You have access to it with a brain wallet or a recovery seed, and you don't have to hold anything. So yeah, same thing with the cryptos. You can invest in any project, and you can buy a Trezor or a Ledger or paper if you're into paper wallets, and store it on there and bury it in a coffee can in the backyard or whatever your preference is there. So it gives you control and access and custody.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. So what you guys have laid out there sounds great for those that are awake and aware, as you mentioned. But I can also see a lot of resistance on those that aren't quite in tune to the reality of where our system is currently and where it's heading. So I can imagine that getting those outside the alternative media realm has not been as easy, because most people, quite frankly, just don't want to take that responsibility upon themselves to manage their own funds, because we've all been conditioned to think that we have to give it to someone who's an expert who can help us, build it and all that stuff like that, and not factoring all the fees and things of that nature. So my question for you is, what's been some of the biggest challenges in trying to present this opportunity to those outside the alternative media space? Just letting them know, and I'm assuming you've used the Great Recession as a reference point as to what could happen if you don't have options. So what's been some of the resistance you might have received?
Man, great question. Yeah, we found that resistance often, and we still do, from spouses. I'll talk to somebody who says, man, I see where everything's headed, and I got to get my money out. And my wife, she's not really fully on board. She might think I'm a little bit crazy, or, there's all different variances of that. Maybe it's the wife's IRA that the husband's calling about. So we encounter that, and we usually I can talk people through it, because it is hard to market this to the regular traditional asset marketplace, because you're right that we're ingrained to think I got to give it to an expert here. I'm a dentist. I'm a whatever my craft is. That's what I'm good at. I don't want to manage my finances. The only people from that traditional sort of asset management realm that we have been working with over the years is private equity. You'll have people who, may not think that everything's going down in flames, but they have access to typically higher net worth individuals, and they have access to a private equity firm that deals in all kinds of different, real estate projects, energy projects, and they pool clients' money. And the good ones that do it conservatively and carefully have been around for a while, and they can yield pretty decent, incredible returns actually for the clients and themselves. And it's usually they're buying distressed assets. They're buying an oil rig down in South Texas that has been losing money, and it's a fire sale or a liquidation sale or whatever. So there's usually limited downside on it, but normally I would reference with somebody's spouse, for example. the important thing to understand here is you can dip your toe in the water with this platform.
Mm-hmm.
You can, Mr. Smith, you can roll over. Let's say your IRA has $100,000 in it. You can start with $5,000. Just roll over a little bit into this and try it out and test drive it. I would also tell Mrs. Smith or the spouse who might be concerned that you don't have to just invest in gold or silver or cryptos with this. We've got clients that once they learn the machinations of this thing, how it works, they'll end up opening up a brokerage account underneath the LLC and managing actual stock and bond type trades and investments themselves if they're so inclined. So, Mrs. Smith, it's not that we need to take all the money out of the system and plow it into precious metals. With this, you're just basically taking control of the account. You might want to invest in real estate. You might want to keep cash in the bank or under the mattress. Your options are, you use the word, options. And that's really what this is all about. This is about giving the individual, giving the investor options and control over their account. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
But it is a hard nut to crack, to help people understand. I'm not really here to help, educate somebody on the monetary system and how everything, where it's all headed, right? But we are here to give you the tools to show you there are options. But for some folks that are just entrenched in the traditional system, the dentist or whatever, who I'm a dentist, I can't think about, I don't know anything about managing money and managing, this isn't really for that person, right? Unfortunately. But those people are waking up in droves. They're coming to the realization that, I might not be able to manage my finances, but I listen to guys like you and I trust precious metals makes sense to me. Maybe a little exposure to cryptocurrency makes sense to me. And maybe a rental property makes sense. So I can take the money out of, the market, which is pretty lofty. I mean, the equity markets are lofty right now, and everything is set up for another 2008 or worse.
Right.
So it's just a matter of hedging yourself, diversifying. I would have those conversations with those people,
Right. One of the main things that, there's two types of audience viewers that will probably watch this or not join us right now. We have the younger crowd that's more tech savvy, so they're in tune to multiple options, and they're probably leaning towards the crypto sector, not really heavily invested in the system in reference to having spent their entire lives contributing to their retirement portfolio. So those are the ones that will be more receptive towards this type of option. But then we have those in the audience that are more heavily invested. They've put 30, 40 years, and they're ready to extract now in the form of retirement. So if you were talking to someone who was a baby boomer, like let's direct this toward the baby boomers, because they're the ones that I feel the most drawn to try to help and just provide a doorway. Whether you walk through the door to this option is up to you, but just to present it to them, because they are the ones that have the most at stake. They're the ones sitting on 6-7 figures or whatever it might be, and they're the ones that want their assets to last longer than them, as far as it being preserved and hopefully growing. And so when you're having a conversation with the baby boomer, the retiree, soon to be retiree, how do those conversations usually go?
Usually pretty fluid. They understand, all those things you just mentioned. This person's been working for decades and accumulating wealth, savings. And if you live through 2008, the last thing those people want is another one, is another hiccup that causes a big dent in their savings. And most people's IRAs and 401ks, there's $18 trillion out there in retirement accounts. And most of that money is just in vanilla mutual funds, spread out across the market. So for the baby boomer, this is about hedging yourself, diversifying yourself, making sure that your life savings, or a good portion of it, is not subject to another big hiccup, and that you can hedge yourself against those hiccups. If you're just in the market and stocks and bonds and mutual funds, you're not diversified. even if your financial advisor tells you, well, yes, we have a great diversified portfolio. You've got fixed income products. You've got guaranteed annuity floor products. I mean, you know, a lot of these boomers have been sold annuities because of the guaranteed income that they're going to get. And the only problem with these guarantees, yes, they're guaranteed by some of the largest financial and insurance companies in the world, but the guarantee is in the underlying asset. It's in the dollar. And, you know, your show is all about rethinking the dollar. If you've got a promise from some corporation to pay you X dollars a month on into the future, you know, study some monetary history. Look at what's happening in Venezuela right now, today.
Right.
To think that won't happen to the U.S. dollar or can't happen to the U.S. dollar is a little bit absurd. I mean, we have entered an entirely new phase here. 5-10 years ago, trading outside of the U.S. dollar would get your country invaded. It would get, you know, your everything in your country ransacked. You'd be called a perpetrator of weapons of mass destruction. You know, there would be this is what would happen. You know, we went into Saddam. Saddam never had WMDs. It was all about, he was trading oil for euros.
Right.
So this now, fast forward to today, and it's like off the rocker, man. There you have nations that are dumping treasuries. It's all accelerated massively.
Right, and that's the de-dollarization process. A lot of people need to familiarize themselves with the term de-dollarization. That's the getting rid of the Federal Reserve notes and anything associated with it, because the game is up, and we're living on borrowed time, in my opinion. So, Will, we had a call coming in, but I lost a caller. So this is a great opportunity to give anybody who might be tuning in. I have Will Lehr from Perpetual Assets joining us. And so if you want to call in and ask any questions, feel free to do so. I apologize for whoever called in, and I was trying to get to you but didn't. So feel free to call in, and then we'll begin taking some questions and whatnot from the chat. So if you want to ask a question there, feel free to do so, and we can go from there. But so one thing I want to touch on while we wait for some callers or some chat questions is the whole crypto space, because just reading the chain a little bit, we have the older crowd, which I imagine the questions arise from, mentioned about not trusting cryptos. They don't want nothing to do with cryptos and a retirement type of vehicle. What have been your reception from people in general, younger and older? As I mentioned, I'm sure the younger are more interested, but in reference to the older crowd, what's been the differences in demographics?
Yeah, and feel free to interrupt me if a call comes in and
Okay.
you want to grab it.
Okay.
Yeah, the crypto technology has it for me personally, in my experience, it takes a while to understand the application, what this stuff means and where it's going. I mean, I learned about Bitcoin in 2012, and it still took me a couple of years to, even though it kind of hit me several times, it still took me a couple of years to like get serious about it or build up enough of a level of understanding and trust to invest in the space. Mm-hmm. And it's very volatile. Very volatile. I mean, you know, anybody who's been around this year can attest to that. So, once you expose yourself to the technology, to the underpinnings of the technology, and all the different applications that it has, I mean, this stuff is being integrated at the highest level. Right now, what are we, September 19th, 2018?
Yeah.
I mean, this year, there has been so much integration of this technology into the current working systems that we live under, whether it be the financial system, whether it be logistics, you have CEOs of all of the Fortune 100 major companies absolutely implementing this stuff into their practice, or trying to figure out how, or so this is a paradigm shift. Cryptos are a part of it. For those that don't understand them yet, or that aren't, that might be wary of them yet, then that's the great thing about this account is options. You know, you don't have to invest in cryptos with this. You can stick with, you know, if you're risk averse, you might want to stick with cash and gold, you know, and maybe an income producing piece of real estate, or exposure to an income producing piece of real estate via a fund or something like that. And then I would tell that investor, though, educate yourself on the crypto revolution. Educate yourself on the technology. Watch some videos, read some articles, because you're going to want exposure, and you know you're going to wish, especially at these prices, in a year or 2 or 3, you're going to really wish that you had just dipped your toe in the water. And if it's a small toe and it doesn't hurt if things go volatile or it goes down further or whatever, then you know, convince yourself to start there, because this technology is here to stay. It's really here to revolutionize the way that we do everything, and the ball has already begun rolling.
Okay, so we'll hold that thought. We got a call. Let's see what the question might be. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, Mike. Hi, Will. Tim calling from Colorado.
Tim from Colorado. How you doing, buddy? What's going on this afternoon? You got a question for Will or myself?
Yeah, I got a couple questions primarily for Will.
Go ahead.
First, so you're Cuts with Gus's affiliate or partner?
Yes, Cuts with Gus. Yes.
Yes,
yeah,
he is.
He's hilarious. I watch him on Rogue Money.
Yeah, he is. He's a handful. That one. Yeah, he's actually up in New York right now, probably with V as we speak. So, yeah.
I love those guys. Hey, you have to speak up just a hair, Will, for me to hear you.
Yeah.
First question is, I'm more of the older generation trying to preserve wealth, and I'm going to stay away from the cryptos for now because of the volatility, and I think it's more of a speculative investment. I'm just trying to not get ripped off anymore, and I'm going to.
Yeah.
So if I want to do a 401k first with precious metals, and let's just for example say silver or even gold, does it have to be a minted coin, or does it have to be a U.S. minted coin?
Well, it depends on the custody, on the storage, where you want to keep the assets. You can, with the IRA, you can invest in any of the IRA approved bullion, the bars, the coins, any of those products. But if you want to store the assets yourself or outside of a depository or third-party trustee, then you want to stick with the Eagle coins, the U.S. minted Eagles, because they're exempt in the tax code from the third-party depository storage.
Tim, you hear
and
me?
that's true for the gold and the silver, correct, Will?
Correct.
Good question. Good question.
Okay, the next question is, when I researched this before, it said that it had to be in a third party, and you weren't able to physically hold it yourself. Has that changed, or was that just wrong?
Well, it hasn't changed. The lack of clarity in this marketplace stems from a lack of court precedent. If you read the tax code, and there's a link on our website on our news page called IRA Fact Library, and it references just this. It has a link to the tax code. It's really a debate. It's a debate that attorneys will engage in, because the code is clear that assets have to be stored by a third-party trustee. But then there's an exemption to the coins and bullion, and it references in a whole separate paragraph the Eagles explains each coin. And the whole existence, the attorneys in support of this argue, the whole existence of these paragraphs is to show that these coins are exempt and they don't have the same trustee third-party storage language. So, but the challenge is, this IRA LLC is a very small niche within a niche within a niche. And there just haven't been that many people over the years that have, used the IRA LLC to invest in Eagles that they store themselves. So there's not a court precedent. Like if we look back at court cases where this thing has come up in court, It was, for example, I'm thinking of a case with a guy in Florida who was audited. He was found that he had created or engaged in a prohibited transaction with his IRA LLC because he issued a loan to another company, and in that other company he was an owner. He was a part owner of the company. So that's an example of self-dealing. You can manage this account and manage the investments, but you can perform those managerial duties, but you can't pay off your home. You can't send your kid to college. You can't take your wife on vacation. You can't loan money to your company. So there are cases, half a dozen of them over the years. And in 2001, the IRS issued a field advisory statement saying that they would no longer challenge the structure of this because it is totally legal. They've decided, they decided in this 2001 advisory statement that using the IRA to purchase shares of this LLC for then the client to invest and manage is okay. It is legal. What is not legal are, some people who use because there's really no oversight with this thing. Once you're set up, you're in charge. We walk you through do's and don'ts and things that you can and cannot do. And we still talk to clients from years ago that, hey, well, I'm looking at this investment or that investment. Do you think, And so, again, we're not tax specialists, but we're here to offer our opinion to people. But to answer your question, there's never been, Bob Smith, who took Silver Eagles and buried them in his backyard that were owned by his IRA LLC. That's never been tried in court, so we don't have court precedent for it. So you have attorneys that argue over whether or not you can do this. So that is something to consider, right? That it's sort of, there isn't court precedent on that home storage debate. And there are other companies like us that market this, market home storage, gold and silver with your IRA. If you're really concerned about it, we've had some clients that have used private storage vaults. So not like the Delaware Depository where you never see the stuff, but an actual, a private vault, maybe that's, in your hometown or a city nearby that you can drive to, and the stuff is there. It's not in your custody or possession, but you can go and get it if you so need to.
Good point there. Tim, thank you, my friend, for calling in.
Thank you very much for the honesty and full description. That's what's held me back is that precedent. Let me ask you this. So if you were to go this way, and this is just your opinion, but the way I would look at it is, you're still going to pay the taxes at some point if the government's still functional, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. So if I was going to do it, in my mind, I'd be betting on the government trying to collect things, but probably I'd stand a chance of getting lost in the mix.
Yeah, that's understandable. My sort of position with the taxation idea is that let's say you've got $50,000 in your IRA today. If you withdraw that full amount, the whole $50,000 is taxable as income this year. It can really affect people's taxable income. Let's assume that the government, the IRS, and everything continues to function as it is today on down the road, which I think many of us would argue that it's not going to, but let's just say that it is. The idea with this is that you would fast forward 10 years when you're going to be taking out those distributions. Maybe your 50K is, well, let's just say it's still worth 50K. The idea is taking them out in tranches so that there's little to even no tax burden if you take out $5,000 in Silver Eagles and then you have $5,000 added to your taxable income. In many cases, especially in retirement, right? When I'm going to take these things out when I'm 70 years old or in my 60s, I'm not going to have any other income per se, or my other working income will be lower, and I can afford a little more taxable income without really causing a whole lot of taxable event for me. So that's kind of the idea, is that you structure this thing so that all right, I'm going to start taking assets out when I'm in a low taxable year.
Fair enough. Appreciate
Right.
that, Bill.
What about if I was to do real estate? Is that more complicated than precious metals? And like if I were to buy a rental, because I'd like to get my money out of the market, to be honest.
Yeah, real estate, yes, it is a little bit more complicated because of real estate law and the issue of acquiring a loan. So if you've got enough in your IRA to purchase a rental property outright, it's a pretty clean and simple process. Depending on the state where you're buying real estate, we would engage in that state conversation with you. Okay, let's say maybe I live in New York, but I want to buy land in Florida. That's something to consider. And we can mitigate all those things. The challenge lies in if there's not enough capital to purchase the rental property and you need to get a loan, you have to get a hard money loan or a non-recourse loan. And it can be done, and there are outlets out there that specialize in lending money to IRAs for the purchase of real estate. So it can be done. It's just a little more challenging.
Yeah.
Excellent. One more question. So if I were to want to call up your company and talk to somebody, who would it be? You or Gus, or would it be? Do you have clerks working for you, or?
We have assistants that work with us in different areas, but Gus and I are the two lead people on the phones. We feel that's just been it's been a big asset to our business and to our clients to be able to call and talk to an owner, even if you have to leave me a message and I call you back hours later or whatever. We have competitors out there that might be a couple $100 cheaper, but they have, hired employees that are walking people through this whole process. And we've been doing this a long time. We've dealt with just about every single type of, lots of different investments that are out there, a lot of challenging different, complicated platforms and complicated accounts and investment strategies with folks. So we're pretty well versed. And so, yes, to answer long-winded answer there, but yes, you'd be speaking with myself or Gus.
Okay, good point. So, Tim, I appreciate you for calling in. We got another caller. So, caller, what's your name and where you calling from?
Hey, my name's James. I'm from Chicago.
James from Chicago. How you doing this afternoon? What's your question for Will?
I'm doing all right. I cashed out about 70% of my stock trading account, bought gold and silver, bought some crypto. I bought leveraged long-term bear ETF call options. How long should I keep those before everything goes down and we go back into inflation, the Federal Reserve steps in, something like that?
Well, that's a tricky one. Your question has to do with investment timing. And legally, I'm not a financial advisor anymore, so I'm not ordained to give financial advice. So my opinion, when you're buying options, and it's been a while since I've done this, but there's the time element that you have to manage. There's so many variables that go into that, but as far as like how things are, unraveling today, I've been saying it for years though, things are unraveling quickly, but Rome didn't fall in a day. And so this transition that we're going through, I kind of hope it takes long. I hope it doesn't all collapse tomorrow, because there's going to be a lot more carnage in that situation, and I have friends and family members and people who are not prepared for what's coming, and I hope that it happens slowly so that those people can slowly start to wake up and take some steps. But sorry, I can't really give you a specific question or an answer rather on how to time that. There's so many variables, and there's things are definitely accelerating. If we look at the political space, we look at the geopolitical space, we talk about the de-dollarization. things are happening very fast, but we could still be sitting here in 12, 18 months having the same conversation. Right. So I like to tell people that, because when you wake up to this stuff, it feels very terminal, and you read the news and you see, it feels very, very terminal, but I don't think the rug's going to get yanked out tomorrow. I think at least it's going to take months and months, and the people, the orchestrators behind the curtain, really, I think are trying to orchestrate a smooth transition. This is like trying to transition. It's just such a mess. Can you imagine trying to transition out of this monetary system into something else? So the smoother the better, the slower the better. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't really give you a specific answer on timing for that.
Fair enough.
Totally okay. I appreciate the answer. Thanks, guys.
All right, my friend. Have a good. Thanks for calling in. So yeah, that was great, man. Some great questions there. So definitely someone received some good information there. So any questions from the chat? Anyone have any thoughts they want to share with us in the chat? Feel free to do so. So I'm curious, and because the question, I read something about, a lot of people mentioned something about cash, and so let's just talk about Will's opinion on preparation. So outside of the vehicles that you guys are structuring, what are some things that you yourself have done since coming across this information? I'm assuming you adjusted a lot of things on the back end for you, but in a practical day-to-day sense, what are some things that you do to begin preparing and to, prosper in the days ahead? What does Will do?
Well, from a financial and savings perspective, I've slowly removed myself from the financial system as much as possible. So my assets are not in the system, and they're spread out in multiple locations all over the place. You've got to mitigate all these different risks from, if you're removing your assets from the financial system and you're going to hold them in your possession, well, then you're now there's a big risk to you and your family. So you've got to figure out how to mitigate that risk, how to store your assets in other locations, trusted locations that you can still access that aren't on your person. So that's a big one. I wish that over these years I would have held more cash to buy in when assets get hit. What is silver at right now? $14. Yeah. I wish I would have plowed more money into just cash rather than silver at 18 and 17 and 16. But such is life. Making sure that you're nimble. Trying to be sure that you can react to different situations as quickly and as with as little cost as possible. If all your life savings is in silver and it's all stored in some vault somewhere, there's a lot of risks associated with that. Personally, and then not just with financial preparation, but preparing yourself mentally, preparing your family. We don't want to live in a constant state of worry and darkness with this stuff, but we do want to be prepared emotionally and psychologically for what is coming, because that's one of my biggest fears, man, is my loved ones that have heard me tugging on their jacket or sleeve or whatever for years now, but probably dismiss me as the crazy cousin or uncle or brother or whatever. But it's, hopefully as things accelerate, the light bulb will go off for those people. But a lot of your loved ones, a lot of your neighbors, a lot of your friends and family are not prepared. So how can we take steps to help humanity, to help everyone else, so that so that we don't go back to the freaking dark ages, which I don't think is happening. But I know that kind of skirted your question, but preparing for this personally, it's not easy, and we have to live life and enjoy life, because if you get in the terminal aspect that this thing's going to fall apart tomorrow, we might have another, I've been on this thing for geez, 8 years now, and it was terminal as heck 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I was able to sort of snap out of it and enjoy life a little bit. And we started a company that helps people, and you know, I'm not living in a bunker eating grasshoppers.
It's
anyway.
a good one. Yeah, I hear
Most
you.
people might be laughing at me in 6 or 12 or 18 months, right? They might be surviving while I'm not. So, you know, who knows, man? You got to do what makes sense for you and your family and your own life.
Yeah, one of my main thought process is the idea of enjoying life now, because I believe that right now is probably as good as it's going to get in comparison to what we're all anticipating is coming. And so travel, love, live, and just enjoy it while being, you know, smart about, you know, your finances, because at the end of the day, it's all about wealth preservation. So that's what this program is all about. So we're about almost close to an hour point, give or take. So I want to, any more questions, anyone want to call in and ask any questions, feel free to do so in the chat. Feel free to, you know, let us know what's going on there. And so Will, as we draw towards the end, want to just get your thoughts on, say we're, you know, for how many months? Was it September? We're a couple months away from the end of this year. A lot of people anticipate the political system that's unraveling right now with the primaries coming up, and we have the court case and the FBI. We have all these things going on. What are some things that have you probably the most concerned that's pending in the next couple of months, give or take the new year?
The things that I'm currently looking at the closest, aside from geopolitical moves, you know, what China or Russia or other major global powers are doing as far as de-dollarization goes, within our own political system is the arrests, the slow takedown of the powers that be, of the deep state, which is slowly taking place. We're starting to see the major backstage powers of a global financial conspiracy slowly be unwound, and that's a big feat, and it is happening. And it's happening in a lot of different ways. So there's a lot of things to look at with this, but we're talking about a paradigm shift and a shift in power as well, from the old system into a new system, which appears to be setting up as a system by and for the people, a truly decentralized system where, yes, you're going to have money controllers, yes, you're going to have business interests, yes, you're going to have billionaires that were entrenched in the old system that transport over, but the main thing is about the eradication of evil, and there's just been a heck of a lot of that in the world, and it's been written into our financial system and our markets, and it appears that it is unwinding. And you know, precious metals are a huge barometer for that. I mean, if we see, I mean, metals have been down in this, you know, silver $14 to $20 range for what, 5 years now?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, and it's gold and silver are the barometer for a lot of things. That's one thing to watch, those prices, and crypto prices too. Once you start seeing some big moves, I think it's, you know, that is the sign that things are heating up and things are accelerating drastically. Right now they're still being controlled, or they're still being held down. We haven't seen, you know, Bitcoin and cryptos started doing it last year. And at the time, it seemed that was kind of a barometer for, you know, real asset classes, non-controlled asset classes. And now looking back, it appears that, you know, they've been co-opted and controlled to a certain degree in trying to limit the progress in this space. And it might even be for a good reason, because it was happening too fast. We don't know that. Time will tell. Yeah. But yeah, there's so many different things to look at and metrics to look at. Global, the geopolitical spectrum. Jim Willey is a guy who I love following, the Golden Jackass, and he's really dialed in on on a lot of that. What's happening with bond yields? I mean, you can look at currencies alone, fiat currencies, and gold and Bitcoin, and just look at the prices, the relative valuations of those currencies, and that'll tell you a whole heck of a lot as things are progressing. You know.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, Jim, I had Jim join me for a live stream a couple months ago, and he dropped so many bombs. It was great. So I enjoyed him as well. So as we draw towards the end, it's been a pleasure having Will join us here to share what's going on at Perpetual Assets. And so one of the biggest benefits is that I'm anticipating having Will on more for something of like a monthly checkup type of thing to get more people to answer any questions or whatnot. Because I look forward to having RTD partner with Perpetual Assets to always be able to provide you a doorway to being able to take advantage of the opportunities they have there. So I'm going to have a link to get to Will's site down below. And so definitely going to look to do more promotions of this opportunity here with you guys. So looking forward to partnering with you guys and helping people take control of their lifelong hard-earned wealth. So Will, it's been great having you join us. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, thanks for that, buddy. Love your work, and it's guys like you that are paving the way and making the change and educating people, away from this propaganda apparatus that the education system, the news media, and everything that just sort of programs us all with the same message. So thanks for your hard work. It is a breath of fresh air to have people like you that are spreading the message. So thanks for that. I would just leave people with, I love your idea. Keep your head up, enjoy yourself. We don't know how things are going to change and how fast they're going to change and how drastically they're going to change. So prepare, but do so with a smile on your face and enjoy life while you're at it.
Yeah, 100% agreed. So as always, everybody, it's been great having you guys tune in on this Wednesday afternoon for this live stream here. I think it was very informative, and a lot of information was shared that can help present options for people. So of course, this is not financial advice. This is just two guys' opinions on what is currently happening, what could happen based upon what has already happened, especially with the Great Recession and how a lot of people say that the next event could be, I've had commentators mention the Great Depression, the greatest depression, the greatest of all depressions. So there's so many words being given to what is coming, but yet I think we're all in agreement that something is happening under the woodworks right now, and then what will pop out will be life-changing for all of us. So stay informed, stay educated, and then also give this video a thumbs up if you have not subscribed to RTD. Share this video with your family and friends. The best thing to do is present them with the opportunity to choose. If they choose, you did your job. You put something before them, let them be the decision maker. But other than that, it's been great, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys later on tonight as I have another guest who's going to share some information about the bond market. So you guys want to make sure you tune in tonight, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, correct? And we'll go from there. So everybody enjoy your day and have fun.